Hello, and welcome to LUKE-N-SHAE'S Place podcast. I'm Shay, and today you're joining me for my Sunday stories and inspiration. I'm praying that you and your family has had a blessed Sunday. And before I begin, two things. I just want to say my condolences for my viewers who are Cowboys fans. And you know what? Let's go, Eagles. That's all I can say. Fly, Eagles, fly. So my condolences to you guys. What a game that was. But moving forward, I just want to say, if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. So I'm going to jump right into it. On Sundays, usually what I'll start to try to do is connect with you guys. After the week, Sunday we'll get together and I'll do Shay stories and inspiration, and that's what we're meeting here today for, to get into my stories for today. I have one story lined up for you guys today, and it's going to be called The Day I Almost Drowned. The Day I Almost Drowned. So the day that happened, I recall it being a summer day. My family always would take little outings here and there throughout the summer to our favorite lake. My family had a favorite lake we would go to. Beautiful place. We'd go camping, swimming. Sometimes we would just camp, and sometimes we would just go to swim. And there was a beautiful trail that my siblings and I would walk around. And that was the place that we were used to. So I remember one day my father suggested to my mother, on one of their outings, they passed another lake, and my father was interested in trying this specific lake out for our family. So I believe it was a Sunday, and my father, he just said, hey, let's go swimming. We're going to go to a different lake. So, as a kid, we're excited, like, okay, great. Now, let me reiterate that when I say swimming, that means playing, splashing around, going underwater, just playing in the water. Nobody in my family could swim except for my older sister at the time, who was home. We were part of the six younger group. I'm not sure about the older six siblings, if any of them could swim, but I know at this time at home, we had my sister. She was about 16. She was the only one in the household who could swim. My parents couldn't swim, and just keep that in mind. So on this day that we were getting ready to go to this lake, my sister, she just didn't want to go. It was one of the things where she just back and forth with my parents here and there, and they ended up making her go. So we all took this drive to this lake, and when we got there was a difference about this lake. The lake that we normally would go to, there wouldn't be like boats. There was no boats in the water or anything. It would just be people swimming, different families. There was a spot for, like cookouts and different things you can have, all kinds of activity. There was an ice cream stand there. It was a lot of different things you could get into, but there was no boats in the lake that we were used to going to. This new lake we went to, it had maybe 3 or 4 boats, families that were sailing around in the lake. So we got in the water. My parents, they got cozy on the sand. They usually spread out a nice blanket. My father, just finishing preaching his sermon, he would rest. He was resting on the blanket, taking a nap. And my mother got cozy, and she snuggled up to a good book on the sand, on the blanket, and she was reading a book of choice. So the rest of us, my siblings and I, we were in the water, in the shallow part of the water. And I remember this day, I was on my sister, who was close in age to me. She was about 9. And at this time, I would say I was 6 years old. Okay. And I remember just my hands being on her shoulders, and she was in front of me, and she was pretending to just, swim around with me on her back. Even though she was walking, we couldn't swim, but I was kicking my feet behind her. So I was kicking my feet and holding on to her shoulders. And out of nowhere, this big wave came and it just went over our head. And we separated. We were separated. I was no longer holding on her shoulders. And it just took me out into the deep, like the deep part of the lake, a deeper part, to where my feet were no longer able to touch the dirt. I couldn't feel my feet on the ground. And immediately I started panicking. And in my panic, I was going up and down. I just remember constantly going up and down. And each time that I would go up, I would try to get some air. I would try to get some air and yell, help. But as soon as I'd open my mouth, I was right back under the water. And this seemed like it continued for an eternity. It seemed like the longest time where I was trying to get help. And I just kept going up and down. Feet wasn't touching the ground. It was so scary. It was really scary. And while this was happening, it just, like I said, it seemed like forever. It seemed forever. I didn't know what was going on around me at the time. And I remember during this time, I got so tired, and I don't know, it just felt like a dream came over me. I had a image in my mind where I could actually see myself, my little 6-year-old self. I could see myself in this beautiful dress, this dress that I didn't own. It wasn't a dress that I had at home or anything. It was a beautiful dress. There was flowers around me. My eyes were closed. I was sleeping. And I just remember my family looking in on me. And I was in this square, just bed. This to me was a bed. And it's like I felt just at that time so tired, but then it was just like a peaceful, I guess at this time I was giving up, going up. I just was so drained. And this came over my mind as 6 years old while I'm going up and down in the water. But in that moment of having that image in my mind, I have no idea what happened, but I had to burst. I had this really just big burst of energy to just start kicking. And when I started kicking really hard, when I got on top of the water, I was close to my sister. I was close enough to my sister that was close in age to me. And she too was going up and down. So she also was drowning as well. And I got close enough to her and I tried to reach out. And she actually, in the midst, I saw her hand trying to reach out to me. And I was just trying to say help. I got close enough to her and I noticed that my oldest brother that was out there that day, he was standing just in a straight up position, but was trying to, it looks like he was doing a lot of moving. He was doing a lot of moving as well. And in that moment, my sister, I noticed she went over to him and she was climbing on top of my brother, trying to get, I believe, on his shoulders. So as I got close enough, I don't know if the wave was pushing me closer, and I saw a family. There was another family at the lake that day. And I remember the woman looking over and she yelled out to my parents, I think your kids are drowning. I think they're drowning. So in that commotion, I'm hearing my parents yelling, and I'm sure that they were scared. Their kids are drowning. You have 3 kids out here that's going underwater. There's an emergency going on. And yet my parents couldn't swim. So that whole thing of my mom running back and forth, but my father not being able to swim. So that was a thing. And so in my mind, I said to myself, if I climb high enough on my brother and my sister, I can just try to leap to the shallow part of the water. And that's exactly what I attempted to do. I attempted to climb up on my brother and then try to climb on my sister, who was she was on my brother's shoulders. And when I'm sure, when I think about that now, that probably looked like a whole clown act where you have, somebody's on one shoulder, somebody on the other, and then you have little me trying to get up there. But in the midst of trying to do that, it was unsuccessful. I fell back into the water and was going up and down again. But that was only for a little split second, because in that moment, I was lifted out of the water. I was lifted out of the water to see my 16-year-old sister grab me out of the water. And then she went and grabbed my other sister, who was now on my brother, where the wave was just coming up. And from what he said, his foot was stuck in a hole that was in the ground. Somehow his foot got stuck in a hole and he couldn't release his foot. So the wave just kept coming over him and he had no way to move out of that hole. So my sister grabbed me out of the water. She grabbed my sister that was close in age to me, my 9-year-old sister, and she got my brother's foot out of that hole. So here she is with 3 people, 3 of us, taking us to dry land. We were rescued. We were safe. And I was grateful. My mother, being a nurse, she immediately started working on us and, getting all that water that we swallowed. She was getting all that water out of us. I just remember laying on that blanket and her working on me and my sister. And I didn't realize just so much water that was coming up, and just, she was working on us. And my father, they were just constantly, as they worked on us, was apologizing, sorry, sorry that happened. And the family came over to check if we were okay, the other family that was there. And it was definitely a scary time for me as a 6-year-old. That's something that, I wouldn't want that for anybody. That was scary. So in the midst of that, going to a different lake, not being familiar with the lake at all. It wasn't the lake that my family was used to. My sister, who managed to come and get the 3 of us. Now, let's rewind to before we even left on this family outing. My sister didn't even want to go. She had a back and forth with my parents, and they finally made her go. And it was one of those things where I have to say, look, I know there's some people that think there's luck and they believe in, coincidence. I believe in God. I believe wholeheartedly that God uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. The unexpected people, the people that you least expect, the people that you wouldn't think God would use in situations to give assignments. And I believe 100% that day, we didn't know it. My sister didn't know it, but God knew it long before that day even came about, that my sister had an assignment. She had an assignment, and I thank God that she said yes to that assignment, because you never know when you're being used, and the willingness that you have to say yes at a given time. You don't know what assignment that we might have in this life, but she had a willingness to say yes, and she was used in that moment. I can think of people in the Bible that were used at different times. I think of David when he fought Goliath. I think of Moses leading God's people. And I think of so many people. I think of Esther. I think of Rahab. I think of different times where people were used to do extraordinary things. And I just have to be grateful for that, because you just never know. And you just being a willing, just having that willingness to, on each side. When I think about that, when. We don't know when. We don't know where we're going to be used. And to have that heart, to have that mindset that, you know what, God, you can use me, because I don't know who I'm going to help deliver from something, help someone overcome something. It could be through words, it could be through actions. You just never know. So when you're looking at people that are just ordinary people, you never know when someone's placed in your life at a certain time to do something extraordinary. And that just resonates with me. And I just don't know if my sister, if she's ever going to see this. And I know I've told her so many times, thank you. But I want to tell her today, if she sees this video, thank you so much. I'm, first of all, glad that my parents didn't allow you to stay home. I'm so glad that that wasn't a thing. But even more so, I'm so glad that you could swim. And I'm so glad that you answered that assignment and you said yes. That's just heartfelt when I think about that. I mean, I might not have been here today, but that day God said, your story is still being written. That thought that came in that little 6-year-old girl's mind, where I seen myself, now I know it was a casket. I seen myself. And I know I've heard people say, hey, your life flashes before you in a moment of, you know, times like that. But I actually, my life, I seen myself at the end, just like that was the end, like, but there was a higher power. My God said, no, your story's still being written. Get that energy, kick that feet and go over there. I'm not finished writing your story. What you just saw in your mind, that casket, that's not going to happen today. That pretty dress, that's not waiting for you today. I have something bigger for you. I still have something yet for you to complete, something for you to do. And I thank him. And I don't know all the ins and outs of everything that I might have still in store for me, or what story is still being written for me. But I'm a willing participant. God, please use me. Because if I can uplift someone today, if I can add a smile to someone's face, if I have a way through my words to still keep you here, for you to realize that God has a purpose for your life, then Lord, use me for that. I want to be able to help someone. That's always been a mission that I have, to try to add a smile, even if it's a smile on someone's face each day. And I just want to leave this with you. This was interesting to me. I had the pastor today say something that was really, really heartwarming, and I just wanted to share it because I'm like, you know, why not? I have to share it because it touched me today when I heard him say it, and I just want to be able to be a blessing to someone. So the pastor talked about, you know, being a good soldier and being a soldier with a crab-like mindset. And what he meant by the crab-like mindset is, so basically, when you have a basket of crabs, they all have one thing in common. They all try to climb over each other and get to the top. They don't like each other. They don't like each other, and they're trying to climb over each other to get to the top. So when you have a man or a woman with the crab-like mindset, they have that crab-like, they're the crab-like soldiers. They're trying to get to success, and they will sabotage you if they see that you are succeeding. They will try to tear up anything that you're trying to put your hands on to make themselves look good. And they're going to climb over top of you so that they can reach their success. that's a soldier with a crab-like mindset. And when I speak of a soldier, I'm speaking of people, a soldier. You're in the army of the Lord. You're a soldier. And everything that you're doing is for God. Your faith, everything that you're doing in a positive way for the Lord. You're in a work for the Lord, okay? You're bringing positivity. You're doing what you need to do. But that crab-like mindset person, they're going to walk over you. They're going to try to climb to get to success. But that good soldier who is beginning to get to succeed, the one who is reaching that success, they're going to actually turn around and grab the hand of that man or that woman, their brother and sister, and they're going to pull them up with them so that they can succeed also. That's the good soldier. What soldier you want to be? What soldier do you want to be in this life? Sometimes we have journeys that we feel like we're drowning. Sometimes through life, we just feel like we're drowning through life. Are you that successful person who doesn't mind lifting up your fellow man, your brother, your sister? Are you that crab-like mindset that you just want to step on everybody, sabotage them, and kick them down and not want them to succeed? Who's going to be the person who grabs you out of that water? Who's going to be the person? You never know who God is going to use. Have a willing heart to be used. Always be kind. And don't try to kick someone down. Try to bring somebody up in a positive way. And again, I'm so grateful that my sister, she answered that assignment. And let's all try to answer our assignment. If we have that, if that's something that we ever have that yes, that willingness to say yes. I'm so grateful that you joined me today for this, and I hope it inspired you. And just for a side note, my family, yes, all my siblings, we ended up learning how to swim. So I'm grateful for that. For myself, I learned how to swim when my town built a new school, and that school had a swimming pool in it. So I'm grateful that in the 6th grade, I did learn eventually. From 6 to, it took a while. And we never went back to that lake. We always went to our favorite lake where we were familiar with. But we did eventually learn how to swim. But I thank God for the assignment he gave my sister that day. And that's my inspiration for you. Don't have that crab-like mentality. Be the good soldier. Thank you all for joining me for my Sunday story and inspiration, and have a great week. Until next time, take care.